Most men think being considerate is what women want. They're not entirely wrong, but they miss the part where consideration becomes invisible the moment something more direct walks into the room. There's a specific type of man women claim they want. He listens, he asks permission, he waits, he negotiates affection like it's a contract both parties need to sign. And for a while, this works. Not because it creates attraction, but because it doesn't create friction. The problem shows up later, usually when someone less polite appears. I'm going to describe a pattern you've probably seen but never named clearly. It happens in phases, and most men only notice the final one. A woman says she values respect. She says she's tired of aggressive men. She says she wants someone calm, someone steady, someone who doesn't push. And she means it, partially. What she doesn't say, because she may not fully realize it herself, is that respect without tension doesn't register as interest. It registers as neutral. This is where men make the first mistake. They hear, "I want respect," and think that's the entire instruction. So they become respectful. They become careful. They ask before they act. They wait for signals. And the signals stop coming. Not because she lost interest, but because interest was never created in the first place. Now, here's the part that confuses men the most. She doesn't pull away immediately. She stays engaged. She talks to you. She responds. She might even say she appreciates how you treat her. But something shifts internally, and it's not something she announces. The shift is in how your behavior is categorized. You move from potential to safe. And safe doesn't generate the same internal response as uncertainty does. I'll explain why that matters in a moment. But first, notice what happens next. Men usually interpret this phase as progress. They think, she's comfortable with me now, she trusts me, I'm doing it right. And from a logical standpoint, that makes sense. Comfort should lead to closeness. Trust should lead to intimacy. But it doesn't. Because attraction doesn't follow the same logic as partnership. This is the point where the considerate man increases effort. He becomes more available, more thoughtful, more accommodating. He thinks the formula is working, just slowly. He thinks if he stays consistent, eventually the relationship will deepen. It won't. What actually happens is this. Every additional act of consideration confirms the categorization. You're not building attraction, you're reinforcing safety. And safety is comfortable, but it's not compelling. Now, let me describe the moment most men remember. You're still doing everything right. You're still respectful. You're still patient. And then someone else shows up. Someone who doesn't ask permission. Someone who doesn't negotiate. Someone who takes up space without apologizing for it. And suddenly, the dynamic changes. Not slowly, not gradually, instantly. The same woman who told you she values gentleness responds to directness. The same woman who said she's tired of aggressive men becomes visibly more engaged when someone less careful is around. And you're left trying to figure out what happened. Because from your perspective, nothing about her stated preferences changed. But something did change. Just not what she said out loud. Here's the part men find hardest to accept. Women don't lie when they say they want respect. They do want it. But they want it from someone they're already attracted to. Respect from someone who hasn't created tension first doesn't feel like respect. It feels like neutrality. Or worse, it feels like weakness. This is why the gentleman loses. Not because women don't value what he offers, but because he offers it too early. He negotiates when he should have assumed. He asks when he should have moved. He waits for permission that was never going to be explicitly given. Let me reframe this from a different angle. Attraction operates on a different frequency than compatibility. Compatibility is rational. It's about shared values, mutual respect, aligned goals. Compatibility is what you evaluate when you're deciding whether someone is worth keeping. But attraction is what determines whether you're interested in the first place. And attraction responds to signals that have nothing to do with politeness. It responds to certainty, to boldness, to the feeling that someone knows what they want and isn't asking for approval to pursue it. These aren't virtues in a moral sense, they're just signals. But they're signals that register faster and deeper than consideration ever will. Now, here's where men get stuck. They see this dynamic play out and they think, so I should be more aggressive? And the answer is no, because aggression isn't the same thing as certainty. Aggression is reactive, it's compensation. It's what men do when they feel they need to prove something. And women can sense that too. What they respond to isn't aggression, it's the absence of hesitation. It's the difference between a man who asks, "Is this okay?" and a man who simply acts and adjusts based on the response. The first man is seeking permission. The second man is testing reality. And reality is more interesting than permission. This distinction matters more than men realize. Because when you ask permission repeatedly, you're not just being respectful, you're demonstrating uncertainty. You're showing that you need external validation before you can move. And that need for validation communicates something deeper. It communicates that you're not sure of your own judgment, that you're waiting for her to tell you what's acceptable, that you're more concerned with avoiding mistakes than with creating an actual dynamic between you. And this is where the breakdown happens. She interprets your caution as lack of confidence, not in her, in yourself. And that interpretation changes everything, because confidence isn't just attractive on its own, it's a prerequisite. It's the foundation that makes everything else you offer feel valuable instead of desperate. Most men never make this shift. They stay in the asking phase because it feels safer, because it aligns with what they've been told is correct, because they believe that if they're patient enough, considerate enough, respectful enough, eventually the woman will see their value and choose them. But that's not how it works. What actually happens is this. The considerate man becomes the person she talks to about the men she's actually interested in. He becomes the one she trusts with her feelings, but not the one she feels anything for. And from her perspective, this makes sense. She does value him, just not in the way he wants to be valued. I need to clarify something here, because this is where the explanation usually gets misunderstood. This isn't about women being dishonest. It's not about them saying one thing and wanting another out of manipulation. It's simpler than that. Most women genuinely don't realize there's a gap between what they think they want and what actually creates a response in them. They notice the men who create tension. They notice the men who don't ask. They notice the men who seem unbothered by rejection. And they interpret those feelings as attraction. But they don't connect it back to the specific behaviors that generated the feeling in the first place. So when they describe what they want, they describe the end result: respect, consideration, partnership, without recognizing that those things only feel valuable when they come from someone who didn't lead with them. This is why the pattern repeats. A woman dates someone direct, someone bold, someone who doesn't negotiate. It ends badly. Maybe he was too self-focused, maybe he was unreliable, maybe he just wasn't interested in anything serious. And she decides, next time, I want someone different, someone considerate, someone respectful, someone stable. And she finds that man. And she's genuinely happy about it. At first. Because he is different. He is considerate. He does respect her. But then the same thing happens. The attraction never fully forms, or it forms briefly and fades, and eventually someone more direct shows up, and the cycle starts again. Men watching this happen draw the wrong conclusion. They think, I need to be more like that other guy. I need to be more direct, more bold, more unconcerned. And sometimes that works, but only if it's real, only if it's not a performance. Because if you're faking certainty, it comes across as try hard, and try hard is worse than hesitant. The actual issue is this. Most men are trying to negotiate attraction. They're treating it like something that can be earned through correct behavior. And it can't. Attraction isn't a reward for good behavior. It's a response to specific signals. Signals that have nothing to do with morality or fairness or how much effort you put in. Let me bring this back to the original point. The gentleman doesn't lose because women are lying. He loses because he's offering something they don't value yet. He's offering partnership before attraction, stability before tension, respect before interest. And none of those things work in that order. This is where most men stay stuck. They see the pattern. They see that the wrong men get the response they want, and they either double down on being considerate, hoping eventually it will pay off, or they become bitter and decide women don't actually know what they want. But both responses miss the point. Women do know what they want. They just don't want it from you. Not yet. Not in the way you're offering it. And the reason has nothing to do with your character or your value as a person. It has to do with timing, with sequence, with whether you created the feeling first or tried to build it logically. And once that sequence is broken, it doesn't reset. You don't get to go back and be less considerate. You don't get to suddenly act more direct and have it feel authentic. The categorization already happened. And from that point on, every interaction is filtered through that lens. This is why what feels sudden to you was never sudden. The decision was made earlier. You just didn't notice when.